for Dummies. My name is Jeff Bolden, and I will be hosting the webinar. If you don't mind, please hold your questions until the very end, and you can type them into the chat box on the very left side of the screen. What is covered in our webinar is a brief overview of this product, focusing in on some important implementation topics and several of the most important features of the product, which I have seen clients term as must-haves, and this is based on my experience of working with this product for more than about 12 years. Okay, the brief overview. We're going to discuss the primary software components installed onto the LBI server and their interaction with loss of security. Access to LBI, that is done through our loss and security administrator tool. There'll be 3 roles: LBI admin, LBI power designer, LBI reports. There is what's called the DSSO configuration, and at installation time, essentially the LBI server needs to know what loss of environment to pull all the users over, and also DSSO stands for distributed single sign-off. So in essence, once you log into Portal, you can go straight from Portal to LBI and you're not prompted to log in again. So that's kind of what the DSSO configuration is all about. Then we're going to introduce the LBI components, okay? The dashboards and their components are typically dashboard tabs, modules, and links. And then the 3 primary core components are reporting services, which are what you typically see as crystal reports or viewing lots of batch job reports and GL292s, what have you, that have been published, smart notifications, analytics. I'll mention at this point that what I've seen nowadays is the majority implementations go with reporting services, smart notifications, and not so much the analytics piece. So I believe that's a separate license component. So primarily the core products we're going to discuss in this presentation are going to be reporting services and smart notes. Okay? Then we'll have some administrative topics, and we've gathered the online documentation for LBI, and we'll have those available for you to download. So, and then finally, questions and answers. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, the installation. Now, first of all, I'm going to go toward the bottom of the screen. You're going to have a Windows server. You're going to have WebSphere installed, and also LBI requires that there be a database installed because framework services, reporting services, smart notes, and analytics will populate and need that database. And what I've seen used more often than not is Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle.
Let me pause real quick. I'm getting some messages here that say you guys can't see the slides. If you can see the slides, please go ahead and type in a yes here, because I don't want to proceed without any slides, obviously. Okay, so for those of you who can't see the slides, I encourage you to log out and log back in because that's probably an individual problem on your machine. I apologize for that, but please proceed. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, thanks, Tan. Okay, now back toward the top of the slide. Enterprise Framework Services is the first piece of the install. It is an umbrella application that basically will contain reporting services, smart notifications, and analytics. And at that time, the installer is going to configure the DSSO.jar file, and that's going to point the LBI server to a specific loss and environment server. And that can be changed. I've seen clients first configure it to talk to the test loss and server, and then have it talk to the loss and production server. So you can switch to loss and environments. So just wanted to make a note of that. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's just say LBI is installed and you've assigned yourself the LBI administrator role. The first thing you're going to see when you log in as the LBI administrator is a screen similar to what we see below, and all you're going to have is the Tools tab. Each and every one of these tabs here is actually a dashboard that we created, okay? But you're the administrator, you're going to see Tools. If you're just an LBI user, you're going to see one of those other tabs. You are not going to see Tools, okay? So the administrator, you're going to see Tools, and under Tools, you're going to have, first of all, over to the right side are the core apps. And the core apps are, in this case, reporting services, its links, smart notifications, its links. But now over here on the left-hand side, you have two additional modules, System Administration and Manage Content. And one of the key aspects of Systems Administration is synchronizing users and roles. We mentioned that there's three primary roles: an administrator, a power designer, and a user. Well, you assign individuals to those roles in the Loss and Security Administration tool, but to have it all properly propagated over to the LBI side of the fence so that he can start having access to dashboards, reports, and smart notifications, we're going to run synchronized users and roles. We'll come back to some of these components later, but I just want to mention that you'll have a System Administration module and a Managed Content module that will allow you to import and export dashboards. Like, let's say you build dashboards and test and you want to propagate everything over to your production LBI server, you would come to Managed Content. I'll come back to it later, but also delivery. We're going to have to configure email devices for all the individuals that are going to receive reports, and that's where we would do it right here. Okay, we'll come back to this later, but I just wanted to highlight this is what you first see when you first log in. After the installation, you'll see a tools dashboard and these modules. Okay, the first screenshot here is what you're going to see in the Loss and Security Administrator tool. You're going to assign people to one of these three roles. Once you assign them to one of these three roles, then on that previous slide I showed you manage users. In LBI, you're going to bring up manage users, and then voila, you're going to see all of these users, okay, that have been assigned one of those three roles previously in the Loss and Security Administrator tool. You also have roles, but please don't confuse these roles with anything in the Loss and Environment Security. These are your roles, your way to assign individuals to roles so that you can assign one role to a report and not have to assign 10 individual people to a specific report. So these roles to the right are LBI roles, okay? And again, I talked previously about the need to synchronize users and roles. There's actually a way you can automate and have this done every 10 minutes or so. So if you don't want to manually have to come and synchronize users and roles, there is a way to have it automatically done on a recurring scheduled daily basis, okay? Okay, dashboards. A dashboard starts off as a tab. So in this little scenario, I have, you don't see it because I clicked on it, but I have a dashboard called Training. And when underneath Training, I have modules. And in this case, I have modules, Reports, Smart Notes, External Sites and Presentations, and et cetera. And within modules, I have links. Okay, so this is kind of the user front end for end users. Okay, so the administrator administrates, the power designer is creating these reports, and the end users primarily are going to access their smart notes and reports through dashboards, modules, and links. I just wanted to kind of get us acquainted with this. And now, actually, we are going to go through creating a dashboard, creating a module, and creating a link. Okay? So you're going to see here I have a little arrow pointing to a little gear. And the gear is going to give me some options to create this dashboard. And at this point, I'm actually going to switch gears and we're going to do this live. So we're not just going to talk through it, we're actually going to do it. So I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to go to the live login server. And here we are. We're on a live login server. And typically, to access an LBI server, we just create a portal shortcut. I kind of glossed over it, but it's typically going to be something like http:// the name of the server /ESS. So that's really what I have here is a portal shortcut. And I'm going to come up to that gear that I talked about. Again, the PowerPoint has me pointing the arrows in the right direction, but we're going to do a new dashboard tab called Accounting. Let's just say I'm creating something for the accounting department. And click OK. And voila, it shows up. And now I'm going to go over to the accounting dashboard, hit the gear, and I'm going to do a new module. I'm going to call this reports. And you're going to see here, this is where you can start sharing it to individuals. So if I create a dashboard, a module, I can start sharing this out so that when other end users log in, they will see accounting and they will see the items that I've shared out to them. So this is where you share out what you created. Okay, I've done the module. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a link. Again, it's the gear. And we're going to add an item, and we're going to this time select new link. And I'm going to call this Open Invoice Report. Using precious time fixing typos, I know. Okay, now here we get to search. We get to search items that have been registered within Framework Services, and specifically the core applications. What are our core applications again? The reports, smart notifications, analytics. We don't have analytics installed, but we're going to look for Crystal reports. And by the way, each one of these core apps has its own little security model, so that means these reports are all visible to this individual. Otherwise, you're not going to see that report and you're not going to be able to create a link to it. So we're going to select Vendor Invoice 4. We're going to click Save. We're going to click, get to rename it again. And it's going to open up. It can be a new window. I'm just going to say slide. And I forgot one little item when I created reports. I like it to be expanded so that it always will show all the reports. So that means as I create links, if I have 5 different reports, it'll appear like this when I load. So I could add a whole bunch of additional links here, but essentially what we've now done is we've created a dashboard, a module, and a link. And that's all I really want to do is go through the mechanics of this. So back to our presentation. So we should be back to the PowerPoint. If we're not, please let us know via the chat box, okay? So moving on. In the PowerPoint, I kind of wanted to highlight what we've done just so you don't want to go back and replay it. The recording, you can see that we came to these additional screens, and this is how we share it out to other individuals so that when they log in, they get to see the report as well. And this is the end result of what we just created. Just wanted to put it in the PowerPoint. I did a different report, vendor open invoices versus labor distribution. Okay, let's talk about some other uses of dashboards. Now, those of you who are HR clients know that once a year you have to go through this process called open enrollment. What if you'd like to roll out all the links that typically are rolled out via portal bookmarks via dashboards? You can easily organize things in modules and in a step-by-step order that makes the most sense and fashion to you. Now, in our previous example, we created links, and the links went to a registered Framework Services app. Well, it can be any link. You can do an HTTP URL to an external site like Google. You can do it straight to your portal links, your change address, employee address, view paycheck, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to have to log back into Lawson again because of that DSSO, that jar file. So I rolled this out as a method for people to access ESS and MSS through dashboards quite frequently. And again, you would share it out to a role or a group, and you would have all these individuals as LBI users that would be able to log in and see everything, and it would be only for their employee ID numbers. So keep in mind, Lawson security is still maintained. Okay, so just wanted to mention another way and a use for LBI. Training, here's another example. I'm creating links to my Crystal reports, my smart notifications, links to Google website, and also those of you who have Design Studio, you know you can create custom Design Studio screens where we can have links to your custom HR11s, PA42s, etc. So again, just trying to give you some ideas. Okay, reporting services, means to access and run secured reports on LBI by authorized users. Users can also receive emailed reports on a scheduled basis. So in other words, you don't have to log into LBI. Maybe you're just a recipient of reports, okay? Reports are created by designated persons, then published to LBI. So you probably have a person that's pretty good with Crystal reports. He creates the report, he publishes it to LBI, and then he can set the properties of the report. We're going to talk about that in a bit, in some additional screenshots. Data sources. You know, whenever you create a report, obviously you have to get your data from somewhere. What I've seen used most frequently is ODBC. It's a speed and performance issue. But Lawson, for security purposes, offers access to query data through what's called Lawson OADB connector. So in that sense, if you run the report at runtime, you're only going to get the data that you, the logged in user, can receive. Okay. So Lawson OADB tool is used for query purposes, but also we can actually query people's print jobs. So a GL292, an RW100, any Lawson batch job that creates a PRT file can be queried and interrogated by Lawson OADB, and that data can be pulled in and rendered within Crystal if you so choose. Also, we have the capability, and we're going to talk about this later because it relates to bursting, is jobs that are run on the server can be FTP'd to the LBI server, and we can break them out into certain sections and display them based on elements, structures, and rights. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Okay. Reporting services has 3 primary links. One is for the administrator, one is for the power designer, and actually 2 are for the administrator. Delivery administration are for the administrator, and reports are for power designer. We'll get into that in a minute. Okay, now the core app reporting services allows you these 3 links: My Reports, Report Administration, Delivery. And if you select Report Administration, you're going to see all of these options here on the left-hand side of the screen. We're going to talk about rights and structures and elements in a bit. Data sources. You can switch a data source, like let's say you build and implement it against the test database. We can switch the report to go against the production database. So you want the flexibility to change data sources once you publish the report. Report schedules. You can schedule the report to be run once a day, whenever you want. Okay, I'm going to spend a little more time on the next slide. Select My Reports. Once the power designer publishes the report, he's going to see the report here, and he can click Details. And when he clicks Details, he gets to see a lot of what he can change about the report. You can control the output options. It just so happens right now there's many options: PDF, Excel, RPT format. So the person, Excel, Word document. There's a lot of options to be able to export the report as. And typically people would like to export it as PDF because that's a file that you can email to somebody if you so choose, if you want, and print as well. Default permissions, the things that you can do on a report once you're logged in, you can set that. And also, most importantly, here's where we assign report users, because when a report is first published, by default, it's not available to anybody. So you must first either give a role access to this report, which in turn could be 100 users who are part of that role, or individual users, because until you do that, it will not be available as a dashboard link. So very important about report users. And also you can set up the schedule here as well. And we're going to talk about bursting in a bit. Here's the capability for latest instances. Like if you want to look at the report that was run last week, not just the one this week, you're able to control instances as well for the report. Okay, so that's selecting an individual report. Okay, let's talk about bursting. Now, bursting is a very powerful topic. It allows us to filter sections of the report for a specific individual. So we have a report, let's just say in this case it's a GL 292 report, and we happen to know that it's by company and level address. That's how the report is split up. Well, what I'm able to do is create what's called elements. And an element is just one of those two items that I want to do filtering on. And then I tie those elements, again, company level address, to a structure. Here's my structure. It's tying company and level address together. And then you create what's called a right. And that means that I want to have a right for company 1234, level 01-02, but also company 1234 and 02-02. So that means whether it be a scheduled report where I get an email section, or I log into LBI and I click view refresh because I want to access it online, this individual, am only going to see these two sections. So it's going to be, these two sections are going to be bursted out and displayed to me. Very important, very important. So I just described to you setting up a structure, an element, structures, and a right for a Lawson batch job that has XML tags written into it. Okay, so we can do bursting with query-based reports too as well, but it's important to know that Lawson delivers a lot of batch job reports that have XML tags written into them, of which you can create your element, structures, and rights. And this is a beautiful way to distribute accounting reports. You've got 100 different combinations to 100 different people. This is a beautiful way to distribute data through LBI, whether you log in or see reports. Now, we can also burst query-driven reports. I've done several quite recently which are supervisor-based. In other words, supervisors and their employees, I want to see specific information, so I can actually create a report and burst it. Okay, before I talk about the query-driven report, there's one or two more slides. I apologize. When you create your elements and your structures and your rights, then you have to go to the report under bursting options, and you have to say, okay, I want this report to be bursted. And you have to select via a radio button data structure. And the data structure I selected was Comp AU GL292, which is the one that ties company and level address together. So once you've done that, now this report, the setup for bursting is complete. Okay, bursting a crystal report that's non-back office. First of all, when you build crystal reports, you typically do groups. Like I'll build a report that groups supervisors, and then I'll group supervisors under department heads. And once I've done that, I've set the stage for a report that's going to be bursted and sent to the department heads for their supervisors, and then one by one, the supervisor for his department. So in this case, I'm looking at the report, I select bursting options, and I select a radio button called data structure, and LBI will interrogate that published report, and it knows the groups. So it knows that I've done a group on supervisor, so it gives me that as an option. So LBI is smart enough to know that whether it's a back office report or a query-driven report, that these are the options that you can burst on. And in this case, I set up a right for an individual to have only one supervisor. So that means when he logs in, I know it's hard to see, guys, but it's 10010048. So that means when these two individuals log into LBI and look at this crystal report, it's only going to show them sections, or the section for that supervisor. So that's bursting. Very powerful feature. You really had to spend a little bit of time on it so you get the general grasp of how you can apply bursting by rolling out reporting services. Okay, we are moving on to smart notifications now. Now, the below is an example of smart notification. It can be scheduled to run, and it's a daily listing of open invoices. It can be received via email or by accessing LBI. So you can start to see that reporting services and smart notes, you can log in to see your information, or you can just have it emailed to you. And the nice thing here is we can do bursting and smart notifications as well. So if you want to log in at your employee ID number and see your open invoices, we can grab information that's specific only to you. And this is kind of like icing on the cake, but we can do what's called loss and drill around from reports. Here, I could do some drill around on an open invoice. Reporting services allows me to do that too, but again, that's icing on the cake. The meat and potatoes of these products is just giving the right information to the individual recipient in the designated fashion most required by either logging in or by an email report. And by the way, backing up the reporting services, when it's emailed to them, you can actually specify the format you want it emailed in. It can be an Excel document, I believe a Word document, but definitely PDF, which is most popular. In smart notifications, it's not an attachment. This is what you're going to receive. You have the capability to format header information, footer information, but it's not an attachment. It's a snapshot of data. Okay, more information on smart notifications. As with reporting services, a user can log into LBI to view the notification results. I think I mentioned that. Or the results can be distributed to the end user via email. The primary method is results via email. That's what I've seen. As with reporting services, bursting is supported to supply filtered results. For example, a daily report listing expired certifications would be emailed to only the specific managers that those employees reported to. Notifications are built upon, here's another unique term, info sets. And info sets is the raw data that has been gleaned from some database, for instance, and primarily the Lawson database. And that data can be retrieved via DME queries and also JDBC queries. And then also, one unique function is it can do LDAP queries. And what I've done sometimes is it just so happens that the Lawson security database is LDAP. And there's not many tools that I know of that can query, that have LDAP query methods. So what I do is I pull information from Lawson security, which is LDAP, into smart notifications, and I've built security reports from these LDAP info sets. And likewise, if you want to import a CSV file to be used within an info set for a smart notification, you can do that as well. As reporting services, smart notifications has a scheduling engine, so you can have info sets repopulated with new data and notifications sent out on a scheduled as you like basis. And then formatting the templates we saw on the previous screen, that you can put in header, nice look and feel information with JPEG files, images, what have you at the top, the raw data in the middle, and then some footer information to affect the look and feel as you desire. Okay, the third core component of the LBI product is the analytic piece. And in the past, it had been referred to as scorecard, okay? And scorecard views are created from data marts. Data marts are basically the data that is sitting in it's an OLAP repository. And there's two primary types of OLAP repositories that the LBI product supports. The first one is the one that comes with Microsoft SQL Server. It's called Microsoft Server Analysis Services, or MS OLAP. And the other one is Essbase, and I'm not for sure who owns Essbase at the moment. I know it's been bought out. I think it's SAP at the moment. Okay, Lawson also delivers an IA system code program to pump data from the Lawson environment system over to these two repositories. And there are two different IA jobs. IA 150 will process data to MS OLAP, and IA 20 will process data to SBase. Now, you first have to configure what data you want being pulled from your lossing system via IA 10. Now, there's a pre-delivered set of data marks that Lawson delivers, and you would see those in IA 10. So you do have an individual system code that allows you to configure the data, and then you have the batch programs that will actually perform the method of an either incremental data load over to your OLAP repository, or you can do a complete build. Most people do incremental because doing a complete rebuild each and every time you run the job takes a lot of time. So, special note, you have an IA system code. Here's an example of an e-scorecard view. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the word E. That was a long, long time ago. A previous scorecard view example. And in this example, data is always rolled up to its most highest hierarchical level. And what you want to do is you want to click down, sort of like a pivot table, if you will. So in this case, I click on category 1. And when I click on category 1, I know it's kind of hard to see this, but I have 2 print screens here. The second print screen down below shows that category 1 was expanded into these categories, starting with beer, wines, and spirits, down to white wine, and probably I could even click on this even one more level to find out which specific flavored and novelty beers make up the 138. And then, of course, you can color code the numbers and what they represent. You can have pie charts. In this case, you have colors down below. So just giving you an idea of what you can use and use scorecard for. Now, those of you who are Excel wizards will be happy to know that you can use from Excel, there's an add-in, and I'm sure there is for MS OLAP, but there was one for SBase that you can directly connect and log straight into your MS OLAP repository and pull your data in. If you don't want to do eScorecard, you have Client, which is built into the Excel tool that will allow you to access the data and do reports from there too. So you could totally bypass the scorecard piece and just go to your MS OLAP or your OLAP repositories via Excel. So moving right along. Again, I think that's about all we're going to cover. I gave you some screenshots, IA10 and IA150, just to give you an idea of these screenshots, like what these forms look like. Okay, we're kind of closing things up, to be honest with you. I know we rushed through a lot here, but to recap, the core apps are reporting services, smart notifications, and the analytics component, and they all fit within Enterprise Framework Services, which allows you to create dashboards, tabs, and links to these registered applications, registered core applications, as well as non-registered core applications. Here's some things I'd like us to consider as we're administrating LBI. First of all, both Smart Notes and reporting services have their own means to secure access to users that will need to be considered. As I mentioned when I was on my reports, once you publish a report, you have to give it access to a role or users to make it viewable by a dashboard. The same goes with smart notifications. Just because I create a smart notification does not mean I can create a link to it right away. I need to share that out. So those individual core apps have their own little security model that we need to consider to share things out. Also, if the end user only receives reports via email, then he will not have to be set up with an LBI role. That is incorrect. He needs to be set up with an LBI role, and here's why. Both reporting services and smart notifications, you have to create email devices, if you will. I know it's kind of a headache, but for the 10 people that are going to get a report, we're going to have to create 10 reporting services, print or email devices, and likewise in smart notifications, we're going to have to create an email device for them. So this is a manual step that for the most part we have to go through is setting up email devices for recipients. Archiving reports. Because of the fact that you can create and save instances, you could have a lot of reports out there that need to be archived. There is capability on a report-by-report basis to say after X amount of reports, go ahead and delete them from the system or move them to a specific archive directory. So you want to be mindful of that, otherwise you're going to use up a lot of disk space on your server. Performance considerations, this primarily falls into reporting services. Let's schedule reports to be run during off hours so that we're not using up CPU and memory of the LBI server. So that is an important item to keep in mind. Reporting services. We talked briefly about elements, structures, and rights, okay? Well, if you have 500 users and you assign them rights, if a user quits the company and moves on, there's no automated way to delete him from a right, so you manually have to go in there and delete the right. Likewise, with adding users, we have to create them manually. So there's some areas where there's a lot of extra work that I'd like you to know about ahead of time. It's these email devices and the rights. So it's just something to keep in mind that there's not an automatic tool to have a person deleted from a right or an automatic tool to be added to a right. So these are just some of the areas of concern based on 12 years of experience. But all in all, a great product. The bursting capability is used extensively. That's why I was asked to spend some time on bursting and show that it can be used in reporting services and Smart Notes. Smart Notes to me is a tool to be used for snapshots of data, not huge reams of data. If you're going to have a 100-page report, hey, that's what Crystal Report's for. If you just want daily open invoices, a listing of my employees, small snapshots of data, usually 100 records or less, Smart Notifications is a cool, neat way to go because, again, it's not an attached report, it's a view. Well, it's actually content within an email itself. If you don't log into LBI, that is, to view it from the dashboard. Which tool to use? I think we kind of covered that already, a little bit anyways. Small snapshots of data, Smart Notifications, huge sophisticated reports that have needs for grouping, sorting, all of the powers and features that Crystal can give you can be delivered in a report. And also, reporting services and all of the reports that Lawson delivers that are burstable. I can't tell you how well used that's used out there in the real world, especially in the world of finances. The finance department anyway, GL, AP, AR, what have you. Both have a scheduling engine, reporting services and Smart Notes. Both have report delivering capabilities. Again, it's just the raw data in a Smart Note, whereas in Crystal it can be a variety of attachments. Or for reporting services, it can be linked to a report. It doesn't have to be a physical attached file. It can be a link, but most people like the PDF attachment. Both incorporate bursting capabilities via logging into LBI or to view the most current data or email reports. And here we've gathered some of the most current PDF documents that Infor offers on the products. We gathered the LBI install guide if you're interested in it, Enterprise Framework Services, reporting services, and Smart Notifications. And there is one available for analytics, but because for the majority of implementations I've been working on lately, we're not implementing that analytics. I did not want to include that PDF here, but it's available if you purchase analytics. Go out to the Info site and download it.
So before we get to the Q&A portion, I just wanted to let you know about some of the upcoming webinars we have. We have 3 in August that are coming up. These are our kind of preparing for the Infor 10. There's several projects you can do in-house to kind of take advantage of and reduce kind of the workload on the main upgrade itself. And to help you kind of plan those and see sizes and get some sort of lots of tips on how to get those projects going and make sure they're successful, we put together these webinars in August. So August 7th, 14th, and the 21st, they're really going to focus primarily on loss and security, process automation, and LBI, and this is kind of the upgrade and getting them into the next stage. So you can sign up for those the same way you signed up for this one. You can just go to nogales.com/education, and there's links near the top for upcoming webinars. You can watch our older webinars there as well, and signing up is very easy. You'll get lots of reminders to join the session, and we really hope to see you there. So with that, we'll go over to the Q&A. So go ahead and type your questions in the bottom left corner, and then Jeff and I will answer them the best we can. It just takes a couple of seconds usually. Are there any questions regarding this this webinar that we just went through? I'm going to give you a few seconds to type up your questions here. So that bottom left corner is a chat box that you can use to ask questions. Jeff, it looks like you covered things so well that there's no questions. Just a few more seconds I'll allow to gather your thoughts if you have any. Otherwise, we'll probably go ahead and wrap up. Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions regarding LBI, I know there's quite a few people on the webinar, so usually we have lots of questions at this point, and no surprise not to see any, so that must mean that Jeff was very comprehensive. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us. You can email myself, tan@nogales.com, and we'll get you the answers. You can also tweet your questions at us at Nogales Inc., or just go to our site under the Contact Us, and you can use the Contact Us form to send us questions. Just kind of put the title of this webinar in the subject form so we know that we have to route it to the right people. Again, thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording this, and we'll make this available to those of you who were on